if I were running the school, I would not allow that student to come into the school that is from a same-sex household.
This is Matt Staver. He's apparently the founder of a group called Liberty Council, a right-wing think tank. This group basically writes legislation for congressmen, for senators, or the president, or whoever else. Writes, executive orders and things like that. Also recommends judges to them, those types of things. And they pass that legislation on to the congressmen as members of the religious community. As Liberty Council founder and a lawyer, that's his job, to marry church and state to the best of his ability. Keep listening to what he had to say here. This, by the by, is from late January 2023.
Personally, that's what I would do. And I would not allow a student to stay there. And I know other people may have other views on that, because on the one hand, you want to be able to have your ministry as something that's transformative.
Others may have different views on kids being banned from schools if their parents are a same-sex couple. How depraved is that? Okay, this isn't a difference of opinion that we're dealing with right now. This is full-blown discrimination. Like, these kids aren't even gay. Okay, they're just from a gay family, and he has a problem with them being around other kids. Does it get more depraved than that? This is discrimination based on association. This would be like in the 1950s, if you were raised by a black couple, you wouldn't be allowed to drink from the white fountain just because you were raised by a black couple. It's like nearly identical situations. And here we are in 2023 with a guy who actually writes laws for congressmen, recommends judges, marries church and state. This guy is endorsing this position. No more kids of gay couples in schools. I'm sorry, man, that is psychotic. Trust me. This is not his only absolutely unhinged view. We'll get to those in a second. Keep listening. Oh, yeah. One more thing I wanted to say. This isn't this is just this guy thinks this, I think that. This isn't like an opinion type of thing. This is you are trying to wreck people's lives through discrimination thing. I just want to make that clear.
My view is that whether it's certainly K through 8, these kids are not, you and I might be able to engage in this cultural war and battle and be biblically grounded, but these kids are not prepared for that. And it is a real disservice to put these kids in the situation, particularly in a Christian school that ought to be a safe environment for them.
Particularly in a Christian school. So this isn't just about private schools. This is about public schools too. And here's the really interesting thing to me. Back in the 1800s, when the Civil War was taking place, can you guess which side Christianity was on? I'm talking like evangelical, Pentecostal, speaking in tongues type of Christianity. Interestingly enough, Christianity was actually on both sides. But the Southern Baptist preachers made the case for slavery by saying the Bible endorses it. It's biblical. We should subjugate the black community because whites are superior and blah, blah, blah. That is nearly identical to what this guy is saying right now. Dead serious. I mean, really think about the differences between black subjugation, Jim Crow laws, mistreating people based on their race, not selling food to them, not renting to them, not letting them use the same bathrooms or water fountains. Think about what this guy's saying. He is in favor of segregation between gay kids and straight kids. Now, how do you determine if a kid's going to be gay? Presumably, they have gay parents. I guess that's his goal. If they don't have gay parents, they probably won't be gay themselves. That logic doesn't really hold up, but I don't think he's using logic here anyways. This is like, does it get more depraved than this? Seriously. This is bad.
Put these kids in the situation, particularly in a Christian school that ought to be a safe environment for them, where they can become very confused, and what they experience at that level can be life-changing for the rest of their lives. That's like putting kids in a viper pit. They're not ready for that.
A viper pit. So apparently being gay or being exposed to the idea that there are gay people in society is basically like putting kids in a viper pit. That is psychotic, dude. Seriously, I don't even know what else to do with that. That's nuts. And it's completely illogical. Logic doesn't play a part in this equation at all. The only thing that plays a part in this equation is hate. There is no logical reason to do what he wants to do, to segregate kids based on their parents' sexual orientation. There's no reason for it. He thinks you can apparently catch gay. He thinks you can apparently be talked into being gay. Well, guess what? You know, when I left Jehovah's Witnesses behind, I was 18 years old and I had my entire life ahead of me. I got into some pretty rough stuff, you know. I got into alcohol. I got into drugs. I finally got clean eventually, but it took me years. But you know the one thing I didn't get into? I didn't get into gay because that's just not my thing. I'm not gay. I could have done anything that I wanted, literally anything. And I deliberately chose not to be gay because I'm not. It's not a choice that people consciously make. And it's apparently something he thinks kids can be talked into. He needs to protect his children from being talked to about the LGBT community lest they become gay. Honestly sad.
Christians not being grounded in doctrine, no matter how the winds blow, but being changed by personal experiences is a problem. In fact, that is the reason why this Respect for Marriage Act passed in the United States Senate.
Okay, if you're unfamiliar with that whole situation, Respect for Marriage Act, I'll try to keep this short. It was just a bill that made it a legal requirement that every state recognize gay marriage if that marriage took place within a legal state. So it doesn't mean that Texas has to let you get married if you want to get married as a gay couple. It means if you get married in New York City as a gay couple and then you go to Texas, Texas legally has to recognize that marriage. That's what it means. So gay marriage is not codified into law with the Respect for Marriage Act. It's just making sure every other state recognizes the other state's legal, marriages if they took place in that state, basically. And we got some real nutter butters coming out of the woodwork when the Respect for Marriage Act was signed. This is one of the representatives who decided to stand on the House floor and talk about the Respect for Marriage Act, Vicky Hartzler.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you my priority. Protect religious liberty, protect people of faith, and protect Americans who believe in the true meaning of marriage. I hope and pray that my colleagues will find the courage to join me in opposing this misguided and this dangerous bill. And I yield back.
Literally crying because the United States is trying to force states to treat people equally and not segregate them. Literally crying because we're trying to bring an end to segregation. That's basically what it is. So anyway, if you were wondering, that's the Respect for Equality Act that he was talking about.
And why this Respect for Marriage Act passed in the United States.
I'm sorry, Respect for Marriage Act, my mistake.
That is the reason why this Respect for Marriage Act passed in the United States Senate. All of those people that voted for it, they were on record that they were in favor of marriage as a union of a man and woman. All of them. Why did they change? We know from some of their staffers, well, they changed because either someone in their family or people that they know, they found out are homosexual or in same-sex relationships.
Okay, I have no idea what he's even talking about, but okay, I guess I could agree that people are a little bit more open to the idea of ending segregation by sexual orientation or ending discrimination against people based on sexual orientation if they know somebody personally in their life who's gay or who's in a gay relationship or whatever other thing. I can see that, I suppose, but, that's not necessarily the case. Let's continue.
So they couldn't bring themselves to vote for the right thing that they knew what they're supposed to do, but they didn't do it because of personal experiences. And so
Okay, that's just completely made up. Like, this is a deal that was made between politicians. So this wasn't because they couldn't bring themselves to whatever. That's just made up. But aside from that, it seems to me that what he's describing is people coming to realize that their positions are wrong when they meet somebody and find that they really are discriminating against people for no good reason, right? And it hasn't slipped by me that he keeps saying they know that this is right. This is a Bible fundamental and blah, blah, blah. We're going to talk about that in a second. I reject that entirely. Keep listening.
Be very cautious in protecting those children and do what you need to do to protect them.
Even if it includes segregating them and putting them into a different school. Absolutely unhinged from reality, dude. Absolutely nuts. Here's the thing about it being a fundamentalist thing in the Bible or whatever. The Bible mentions gay relationships a total of 6 times, right? 4 of those mentions are in the Old Testament, and those can be safely thrown out because the Old Testament was fulfilled when Jesus came back within the eyes of Christianity. We can just ignore those mentions because they don't apply anymore since Jesus came back. Okay, that leaves us with 2 mentions in the Bible of gay anything at all. The first one is in Romans, and I think the second one is in Timothy. It could be argued that the mentions in Romans and I think Timothy, the only 2 mentions in the New Testament, we're not talking about long-term gay marriages or long-term gay relationships that people take part in. It could be argued that they're talking about adultery, running around and being promiscuous or whatever other thing. Some Bible scholars may argue with that, some may not. I mean, it's kind of up in the air. So you know what? To break the tie, let's just look at what Jesus said. He was the basis of this whole thing anyways, right? What did Jesus say about gay marriage? Would you be surprised to find that he said absolutely nothing? He said nothing about it. Are you surprised to hear that? He said nothing. He didn't give a shit. He didn't think it was that relevant, apparently. He came to Earth, and he was here for 33 years. And he had that time to pass on God's message, disseminate it to the rest of the world. You'd think he knew that this book was going to be read for the next 2,000 years, right? Picked to pieces by everybody. So you would think that Jesus would know exactly what to put in, exactly what needed to be said by him to make sure that people knew what he wanted. And would you be surprised to find that he didn't say a word about being gay? That's weird, right? Is that weird to anybody else? That's weird to me. Just for good measure, I do want to mention they love to talk about Sodom and Gomorrah and how Sodom and Gomorrah is a perfect example of God hating gay people. Actually, no. Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed for their ill treatment of the poor, not because they were gay. Says it right there in Ezekiel. Yeah, right here, Ezekiel 16:49-50. Let's just read this puppy. Behold, this was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excess food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy. Huh, that's weird, because I've spent the past 30-something years listening to this guy and others like him tell me it was because they were gay. Weird, right? What an odd thing to hear, when the Bible very clearly and explicitly says it's because of their ill treatment of the poor. Strange. A preacher tell a lie? That's not the first time this preacher told a lie. Check this one out. Mid-August 2021. We're going back in time now. We're going to unravel this whole thing. Matt Staver decided to take a position on the vaccine and the virus, which became kind of his staple. This is the thing that he's really cared about for the past 2, 3, 4 years, since COVID came out, so 2020, whenever. Check out what he had to say here.
We began to realize that there had been a global effort to vaccinate everybody on the planet. Sounds like a innocuous, a good, altruistic motive where they want to make people, quote, healthy, close quote.
Yeah, so I imagine he's going to poke a hole in this, right?
Healthy, close quote. But in reality, what is involved in this is a depopulation, a population control, to reduce the population of the planet and to control everyone and to do it by force and to have a tracking mechanism to determine whether or not you've had one of these particular injections.
This guy is helping write legislation for congressmen. Okay, this is nuts, dude. He's talking about depopulation of the planet. This is like full-blown QAnon level stuff that he's talking about. These are QAnon conspiracy theories that he's espousing right now. This is crazy. And what's this about a tracking mechanism? I know what he probably meant was people are going to be like their name's going to be written down in a book or something that they got the vaccine. I don't know that that's even true. I don't think it is. I think the tracking mechanism for who got the vaccine is you have a little card that has your name on it. That's it. It doesn't mean they're writing your name in a book on a list and they're going to hunt you down or whatever other garbage. But when he said that, the tracking mechanism thing, he was implying a little bit more than that.
By force and to have a tracking mechanism to determine whether or not you've had one of these particular injections.
When he said tracking mechanism, I feel it's pretty obvious what he meant was they're going to be tracking you, like geolocation style tracking you, right? At the very least, he was kind of hinting at it or implying it. How can somebody who's gotten this high up and so close to people in government be this like unglued from reality, honestly?
I had two women coming to my wife actually, and they said, you know what? I don't have the shot, but I just visited my relatives.
Okay, now they said, I don't have the shot. That's going to be important in a second. Remember, the people he's describing right now have not been vaccinated. Okay, continue, Matt.
My relatives, and I stayed the weekend with them, and now I have 2 cycles a month. I've never had that.
Okay. So there was a link found between longer cycles and getting vaccinated. Not that this is bad or not that it, caused any kind of fertility issues or any of that other garbage. That's completely made up if somebody says that, but that's not what he's saying anyways. He's saying this person knew somebody who got a vaccine. And by proxy, I guess, they started having problems. That is completely made up. I'm sorry. This is so beyond ridiculous. I don't even know what to do with it. It's completely fabricated. And he knows it is. You can't tell me that he actually believes the garbage coming out of his mouth right now.
And so what we found was a woman who, for example, hasn't had the shot, but her husband did, but she's now sleeping, in the bed with her husband, not having any intercourse. They're older people and they just are sleeping together.
Older people sleep together all the time. You've seen, sleep together, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You've seen the STD rates of nursing homes? Out of control. It's a problem, okay? I don't know why he says that old people don't sleep together, but I feel like this gives us a little insight into his own life. But all right, continue, Matt.
They're older people and they just are sleeping together. But now she's starting post-menopausal, having bleeding cycles again. We have people.
Remember, this is somebody he's describing. Never got the vaccine, okay? Never got vaccinated, this person. He's describing somebody who just knew somebody else who got vaccinated. And now they're having these issues. Just ridiculous on every level.
Cycles again. We have people that are 9 months post-menopause, 9 months post-menses. They haven't had a cycle in 9 years. 9 years. So this lady now no longer sleeps in the same room with her husband because every time she does, she bleeds.
She never got vaccinated, but her husband did apparently. And every time she is in the room with him, she bleeds. This is just ridiculous, dude. This is bizarre. He's obviously making this shit up. There is no evidence of any of this stuff. But he says it brazenly and with a straight face, and his gullible suckers believe him.
Because every time she does, she bleeds. I had people with rashes that have gone on for months.
I bet. You touch somebody who was vaccinated and you develop a rash. Absolutely. Things getting this extreme for people who were not vaccinated but knew somebody who got vaccinated. If it was this extreme for them, you got to think that people who got vaccinated are on their last leg, right? Not for nothing, I've been vaccinated 4 times. I doubled my 5G coverage by every single time I got vaccinated. It just, got better and better phone signal. And here I sit. I mean, I'm fine now. I glow at night sometimes, but at least I have better phone signal. So there's that, I guess. I am joking, by the way. I feel like I should make that clear in this situation. I've listened to enough anti-vaxxers over like the past week that I feel I need to tell you guys directly. I'm joking. I don't glow. My 5G is not better quality now than it was before I got vaccinated.
I've had people say, I've gone to someone who had the shot at church. I hugged them cheek to cheek. That afternoon, my cheeks started having the rash. It went to the rest of my body.
I bet. Totally. Absolutely. This is so believable.
My daughter had the same exact thing with a similar experience. So what we're now seeing is that there is some kind of transmission and or shedding, whatever word you want to do, from a person who has one of these shots to somebody who doesn't have the shots.
No, that's false. There is actually a process where vaccines can shed like that, but it's not possible with this type of vaccine. Years and years ago, I don't know exactly who was responsible for this, but a polio vaccine was given out. It may have been Bill Gates, because Gates has been really interested in vaccinating the world, if possible, which is a noble cause, in my opinion. Anyways, somebody, I think maybe Bill Gates, supplied a bunch of vaccine doses of polio to an African country, I believe. And this African country, they were the oral version of the polio vaccine. So you just drink this liquid, basically, and it vaccinates you, basically. Well, the vaccine wasn't properly processed. Basically, it was a cheaper version of the vaccine. So when they make a vaccine, one way of making it is to take an active, living version of the virus and kill it, basically. Like, kill that active virus. And then swallow it or inject it or whatever, so that your body can get the virus's DNA and examine it and build like protections against it. That's one of the many ways that vaccines are made. Well, in this case, with the oral version of the polio vaccine in this African country, they didn't completely deactivate all of them because it was a cheaper version. And as a result, they actually became infectious when they took this vaccine. It's called vaccine shedding. So you take the vaccine, you're actually shedding particles of the polio virus or of the measles, mumps, rubella, or whatever it is. It almost never happens. It's nearly 0% in almost every single case, and it is 0% with the COVID vaccine, because that's not how the COVID vaccine is manufactured. You're not taking a live COVID or a live coronavirus particle and truncating it or deactivating it. That's not how this vaccine works. So, yes, there is such a thing as shedding. No, it's not possible with the COVID vaccine. He's just making things up here completely. That is by no stretch of the imagination where this nutter buttery ends. Check this one out. It's late October 2021. Dude decided to go all out in favor of soldiers. Check it out.
We represent a chaplain.
I thought he was going to say the Lollipop Guild for some reason.
And this chaplain says he's never seen his military colleagues abused like they're being abused right now. They're being intimidated, abused. They're threatened with dishonorable discharge, no matter how many tours of duty they serve.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. Guess what? When you join the military, you are no longer an individual. Unfortunately, I'm not a fan of that. I don't like that that's how it works, but that is kind of necessary to build an army in today's world. Honestly, in any world. People have to kind of be government issue for the most part. Now, the military should do a much better job of re-socializing soldiers when they leave the military, but, this is just kind of how it goes in militaries. Yes, of course, they are getting vaccines. What do you think would happen if we were actually at war with a nation, an enemy nation, and suddenly COVID swept through the entire camp. What do you think would happen if the military was incapacitated because of some illness? Measles, mumps, rubella, polio, or any of it? This is not a weakness that we should be exposed to. Yes, people should be vaccinated in the military, absolutely. And no, you don't have a choice in it. You never did. Nobody has ever had a choice in this since the dawn of time. You think they just started offering COVID vaccines to the military and this is the very first vaccine they've ever been forced to have? No, they've been giving people vaccines for years in the military. This is like mandatory, dude.
No matter what their rank, no matter their honors, dishonorable discharge.
That's completely made up, by the way. They were not dishonorably discharged. If they chose not to get the vaccine, the military was gracious enough to discharge them. Not dishonorably, not honorably. They just let them go. You know how hard it is to get out of the military? Holy shit, dude. People were claiming to not want the vaccine and then leaving the military and getting the vaccine just as a method of getting out. It is so hard to get out of the military without being dishonorably discharged or completing your term. They're really lucky it wasn't dishonorable discharge, but no, they just let him go, actually. So the guy's just making this up once again, just blatantly, flat out, bald-faced, lying to your face again.
Of duty they serve, no matter what their rank, no matter their honors, dishonorable discharge. And these chaplains, not just the one we represent, but many chaplains have told us that the rate of suicide has increased 20 to 25% during COVID. They expect to see that the rate of suicide will exceed that because of the pressure.
Dude, is this even true? Is any of this true? This sounds like another bald-faced, blatant lie to me that this guy's been telling. That's his MO at this point. Like, how many lies have we heard out of this guy's mouth? At least he tells the truth about his interest in segregating children based on sexual orientation. There's that.
These men and women who have sacrificed everything, put everything on the line. They've done everything for their country.
Well, if they really wanted to do everything for their country, they would keep it safe by getting vaccinated so that they're not vulnerable in an important moment. But okay, you know what? They want to leave. The military gave them an out without being dishonorably discharged. That's more than they deserved, probably. I don't know what he's complaining about.
They sacrificed everything. Now,
like, the dude doesn't just want people to be allowed to leave the military with no consequence. He is seemingly trying to force the military to allow unvaccinated people to stay in. That's just not how it works, man.
Everything. Now you're telling them that they will be betrayed, they will not be remembered, and they will get the ultimate badge of dishonor, a dishonorable discharge.
No to literally all of that. Nobody ever said any of that.
The pressure on that side versus the pressure of violating their conscience and sinning against God is unbearable. And there's no question, they say, people will end up taking their lives under this pressure.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, you just have to get vaccinated. But aside from that, literally everything he said was garbage. They did not dishonorably discharge people for not getting vaccinated, though they should have. If you really want to know what happens with the military and getting vaccines and stuff like that, this is what happens. August 17th, 2018. This is boot camp, basically. This is as soon as you join. Watch this.
What will you state in every single box?
Age and allergies.
So your age and your allergies. They should not have to ask you. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Please make sure your sleeves are rolled up high so they do not interfere with the shot. Stickers should be centered high as well. From this point on, there should be no talking unless you or the person next to you needs medical attention. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Sticker on the back of your hand and go to ma'am. 18, no allergies.
18, no allergies.
Sub in the box. This is 200X.
It's an assembly line, basically. You've got one guy on the left, one guy on the right, and this guy has the polio vaccine, this guy has the MMR vaccine, this one has the TB vaccine, and they just stick you. You move down the line, they stick you, move down the line, and you sit down, wait 15 minutes, then you get up and you leave. This is seriously as assembly line as it gets. That's what the military is all about, and that's what it's been about since day one. This guy here... This guy thinks that they're active agents capable of making their own decisions. You're not. When you join the military, you are not. a sovereign agent who makes their own decisions. You are a GI, a government issue. That's what that means. G.I. Joe was government issue Joe. Not Joe, government issue Joe. You don't belong to yourself. You don't belong to your parents. You belong to the military, the U.S. military, okay? They have no right to complain about getting an extra vaccine, and they're honestly deeply lucky the military allowed them to leave without being dishonorably discharged. But anyway, I digress. Keep watching this.
Your hand and go to ma'am. 18, no allergies.
18, no allergies.
Sub in the box. This is twin Rex. Hepatitis A, hepatitis B.
18, no allergies.
Stick on the back of your hand.
18, done.
Stick on the back of your hand, go to ma'am.
18, now.
Stick on the back of your hand, go to ma'am.
26, none.
Hepatitis.
The point is, this is not like something that people get to choose in the military. This is something that people do. And if you don't like that, then don't join the military. That's just what it is, baby. This guy is so completely full of from beginning to end. Always has been. And he will always find a reason to be persecuted when he is literally the one persecuting others. He is the person who is actively trying to segregate children based on their parents' sexual orientation. If that's not disgusting, I don't know what is. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Emily Sigmund, he's afraid kids might learn gay people aren't monsters by letting kids of gay parents around them. Yeah, that's it. He's afraid that they'll be humanized. He doesn't want them to be humanized. He wants them to be viewed as monstrously evil and immoral and irredeemable. And he can't do that if you know a gay person, because you'll have a personal emotional connection with them. That's the goal. He wants to force people back into the closet to prevent them from humanizing each other, being normal, regular people, basically. Disgusting, dude. Disgusting. Lol, Owen just couldn't get into the gay. You couldn't do it, man. I tried to make the decision. Turns out it's not a choice. Urban Mask, what do you mean the Old Testament is thrown out? The 10 Commandments are completely Old Testament, and Christo-fascists all love on the 10 Commandments. Yeah, that's true. And I appreciate you bringing that up. That's a really good point. I should have mentioned that earlier. Jesus fulfilled the law, so it has been nullified, right? There aren't just 10 commandments. There are actually 613 of them. All 613, aka the old law, have been fulfilled, completed. We're done with it. There's no reason to follow it anymore. If you want to hate gay people based on the old law from the Old Testament, then you're also going to have to refuse to eat shellfish, refuse to wear polyester, cotton and linen blends, refuse to put 2 seeds in the same hole, refuse to eat pork. I mean, the list is endless. And you'll notice they don't do, I'm talking Christo-fascist nutcases, they don't do those things. They're okay eating pork. They're okay eating shellfish. It's just the gay thing that they want to zero in on.